Losi's Mustache asks, so the staff is always recruiting to avoid having holes on the roster. A few years ago, receiver was a major concern. Currently, it's the offensive line. The last 2 to 3 classes have addressed wide receiver, and it seems 22 and 23 have addressed the O-line very well so far. So, in your humble opinions, which are not that humble, what will be the next position on the roster in crisis? He's throwing his hat in the ring for defensive end, edge rusher, with the way the cycle and depth of the position is playing out. Nate, do you have any thoughts on this particular conversation?
Yes. I think he's right. I don't want to misquote. I'm paraphrasing here, but as part of the interview that I did do with Manny Diaz, part of it was the relationship between having strong edge rushers and having strong corners, and how that marriage, how important it is to football. And he gave a great quote that I'm going to mess up, but it was something to the effect of, the person in football with the ball in his hands is the most important player on the field.
Mm-hmm.
On offense, that's the quarterback overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the players on the defensive side of the ball that have the best opportunity to impact or diminish that person with the ball in their hands, it's at defensive end and at cornerback.
Yep.
So your strong play at those positions and excellence at those positions is now coming full circle, where you see it prioritized in the NFL draft. There's a reason why these guys at corner and defensive end are going first.
Yeah, and receiver, by the way,
early in the draft,
because you can manufacture 12 touches a game for a receiver. So the value of a running back used to be he'd get 25 carries a game. You need to have a great running back. But as football has gotten more wide open, you have guys that are getting 20 targets a game. So that's kind of the same thing. You need a guy who's going to catch most of those and is going to get open for most of those and is going to make something happen on at least half of them outside the structure of the play.
Yep.
So that is why quarterback and receiver, especially in the NFL, you go contracts. The receiver contracts are ballooning for these guys that are elite number one receivers, because they can have a significant impact on your quarterback, who is the most important player in football. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I would say, and this is where it's tough, because I think Penn State addressed the defensive end situation. I think they nailed it with getting denied Dennis-Sutton and with Demeioun Robinson. But does that help this year specifically? So you could say this is a problem this year, but that the die's been cast there already, because you've got a a sophomore, and a true freshman, along with Adisa Isaac. So you're banking on Adisa Isaac being the lead dog, and then those two guys filling in the rest of the need. Can they do that? Beyond this year, because of literally the rest of the show, I don't think you can predict year to year where your strengths are going to be. I don't think you can predict, because this is something that we talked about a little bit on one of the BWI Dailies previews of this week, is with Ryan. He was talking about the running back position in recruiting. Does Penn State take 2 this year? Well, they're deep and loaded at running back this year, but if Nick Singleton, a true freshman, comes out and explodes on the scene, does the transfer portal affect that situation? Do guys behind him transfer? Does he transfer if he gets an NIL deal at USC or something like that? These are the realities that we don't know. So right now, defensive end would be the situation. And then I'd say just going for value, corner, because, Kalen King's not going to be here forever. The clock is already ticking on him. Joey Porter Jr. is gone after this season. Johnny Dixon is a redshirt junior, I want to say. And then you got Marquise Wilson. So you've got some talent there. You got depth this year, but everything like in the NFL is year to year now. I'd say it's even more year to year because you don't have contracts. You can't guarantee these guys are at any one position for any length of time.
Yeah. I mean, literally no disagreement. I mean, I think that, you've got to re-recruit your own roster every year. You got to make sure that everyone that you want and prioritize is staying in the program, understands the vision that you have for them, and is bought into that. It's going to be paramount.
As always, this always happens, is like we spend a lot of time on stuff at the beginning and then we have 4 questions we cram at the end, which is entirely on me as the quarterback of this show that we're doing the 2-minute drill and we're down by 4. Okay, Train027 asks, if you could change one thing about collegiate sports, whether it's rules of play, eligibility, transfers, financial compensation, television contracts, administration, anything, what would it be, Nate?
Oh, man.
All right, I'll go first while you think, because I've had some time to think about this.
It's like a hindsight thing, though. I wish they would have changed originally 20 years ago. That's what I wish. That's what I would change, is I would have changed the NCAA's stance 20 years ago that Curtis Enos couldn't get a suit for an awards ceremony without losing eligibility. Like I wish that wasn't the rule 20 years ago.
Yeah. So
because this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is like the reason there is this disparity in college football between and broad strokes, the haves and have-nots, and I know that that's going to rub people the wrong way, but where the money is and where the money is now going is because of the love of the game, the level of interest, as much as we love football and as many eyeballs as watch it. I want that. We exist because of that. This show happens, this podcast, if you watch it on YouTube, all that happens because you love football and you have access to watch it all the time. Tuesday night at midnight, Wednesday afternoon during bowl season. Whenever you can think that there's a football game other than the spring, we hate football in the spring, you can watch football. And that level of interest has drawn a lot of money. And I don't think that we should, just because we don't want some people to have the money for some reason still, then nobody should have money. Because that's the only other, to me, that's the only other way to do this, is if you can't pay the players, then the salaries, the opulence, everything else has to go. All the other stuff has to go. You can donate to charity, you can whatever, but it doesn't, like, you can't have this disparity that has currently existed for the last 20 years, as you've mentioned. So to me, the thing I want to roll back, and I don't even buy this, truthfully, is the RPO, because I think it makes for a lot of offense, which is really fun, but it does feel very unfair to the defense. You're telling me that they can go 2 yards downfield, it's a run until it suddenly isn't? And I cannot, you cannot play traditional football. And there is, even in me, Thomas Frank Carr, the football analyst who loves advanced metrics and stats and things like that, I also miss the I formation every once in a while. Every once in a while, a test of masculinity in the trenches. That's all gone because of these advances in football. The spread offense is it's going to be what it's going to be, right? So that is not taking advantage of any rule. The RPO is taking advantage of a rule in football that does feel pretty unfair to the defense. But that is, if there's anything that is true about modern football, it's that it's unfair to the defense. Everything.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I have one.
Yeah.
Headsets in helmets.
Yes, that's a great one.
Right? Like, staring at the sideline is stupid. It slows the game down. Let's just speed up that process.
Yeah, I would be fine. So the 15-second rule, I think, is great in the NFL, where you can communicate up until the snap, basically. So that, I think the cards on the side are fun, but I agree with you. I'm not a fan of it. The difference is, I think that you're never going to have, I guess no huddle is an option in sports, in the sport already, but you're not going to mitigate staring at the sidelines and waiting till the last second to call your play. That's going to be a part of football because it's about the advantage of, as I think James Franklin or Mike Yurcich has said in the past, having the chalk last. Like, it's as much a duel between the coordinators pre-snap as it is anything else. Let's see. Rad Dad Jeans is back. He says, okay, here's my question, T. Frank. Predict Penn State's record for the 2022 season with the following scenarios. A great offensive line, a good offensive line, an average offensive line, and a below-average offensive line. Okay, so I'm going to start this one. If Penn State has a below-average offensive line, you're going to have the exact same season you had last season, because that's what it is. I'd say probably 8-4. I'm a little more bullish on this team because I think the skill positions are better. It is, as we've talked about, We've talked about this. The skill positions are better. They're in year 2 of the offense, and the offensive line has the potential to be better. So 3 of the 4 things are better, and if you just get average out of that, which I'm predicting it's just going to be average to slightly above average, 9 wins, 8 wins, that is reasonable with the team, even if the defense struggles a little bit out of the gate. I think it's even then, as long as they survive the test at Purdue, there are no other offensive juggernauts on this that I can see on the schedule in the first month of the season. So a below-average offensive line is just what you got last year. And then an above-average offensive line or an excellent offensive line, and we're back to 2019. We're talking about a team that can go into the final months of the season with maybe 1 loss, maybe 2 losses, and they're pushing for a New Year's Six Bowl, or, if they're really lucky, an outside bid at being a 1-loss college football playoff team that ultimately doesn't get there because that never happens, unless you're Georgia or at Alabama or the SEC. So there you go. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm right with you. I don't see the offensive line as being the sole indicator of success or failure. Right? Like, because I didn't see it that way necessarily last year, but because the bar was set so low with its inconsistencies, you're right. I mean, it's just, if they continue to be inconsistent or as inconsistent as they were last year, and Sean Clifford doesn't perform, or that limitation impacts what he's able to do, and right, like, you have to start with that foundation. Right? Like, if the offensive line can get you to the next level, then it opens the door to possibility to see how good your quarterback or your receivers or your running back can be. And in some cases, depending on the running back, maybe it doesn't even matter. Right? Like, and that's a huge part of this.
Penn State,
that's a huge part of this.
For 3 years of the 8 years of James Franklin's tenure, he had an elite running back. 4, add in Miles Sanders there as well. And you would also add in Journey Brown. And they made up for 5 of the 8 years, he had an elite level skill, physical ability running back that made up for a below average offensive line early on to an average offensive line towards the end.